There's a lot of talk about dyslexia going around in legislation, policy, with parents, teachers, families. So this presentation is going to help us understand what dyslexia is. The word dyslexia actually helps us to understand it. Dys means difficulty, and lexis means word. So dyslexia is difficulty with words. Dyslexia is a language-based disability. It can affect spoken language, reading, spelling, writing, or pronouncing words. In 2002, the International Dyslexia Association adopted a definition of dyslexia that has been one of the most commonly used definitions in the field. According to IDA, dyslexia is a specific learning disability that is neurobiological in origin. It's characterized by difficulties with accurate and/or fluent word recognition and by poor spelling and decoding. These difficulties typically result from a deficit in the phonological component of language, often unexpected in relation to other cognitive abilities and the provision of effective classroom instruction. That's a mouthful. Let's pull that apart a little bit. Dyslexia is a specific learning disability. That's referring to the category of SLD under IDEA 2004. And under Section B of that regulation, IDEA says the term includes such conditions as dyslexia. When we think about neurobiological, we need to understand that everyone's brain is different. But studies have shown that when reading, the brains of people who have dyslexia activate very differently than the brains of people who do not have dyslexia. So this specific learning disability that's neurobiological in origin is characterized by some difficulties. Let's take a look at those. The definition says difficulties with accurate and/or fluent word recognition. In other words, kids have trouble getting words off the page either correctly or quickly. It's also characterized by poor spelling and decoding. In other words, people who have dyslexia have trouble using sound symbol knowledge to either spell words to get them down on paper or to read words to get them off of paper. A deficit in the phonological component of language simply means difficulty with the part of language that has to do with sound, perceiving sound, recognizing sound, mapping sound onto letters, etc. The difficulties a child with dyslexia has are often unexpected in relation to other cognitive abilities. In other words, when we talk to that child or interact with that child in the classroom, we might think that child is very intelligent and we are puzzled by why that child can't read. Dyslexia difficulties are also surprising given that we've provided our kids effective classroom instruction. In other words, early on, we provided children explicit instruction in how the code works. If we haven't done that, we can't rule in that a child has dyslexia. It may be that the child didn't receive effective classroom instruction. Students with dyslexia who have word-level difficulties may have other secondary issues related to reading. For example, because they can't get the words off the page, they might have trouble with comprehension, or they might not want to read, which reduces their reading experience. Those experiences, or lack of, can in turn reduce growth in vocabulary that we get from reading and the background knowledge that we get from reading, so we can have a cycle of the rich get richer while the poor get poorer. Important to understand in dyslexia is that dyslexia is not one specific thing. It actually exists on a continuum. But one type of dyslexia is phonological dyslexia, those children who really have trouble attaining sound symbol relationships. Another type of dyslexia is naming speed dyslexia. That means children take more time to see a letter or a number on a page, bring it into their brain, and call it out. This might result in difficulties with fluency. We can also have double deficit dyslexia, which means a child has difficulty in both naming speed and phonological processes. Many myths surround dyslexia. We're just going to take a look at some of them so we can understand what dyslexia is not. Dyslexia is not seeing backwards. Children might reverse letters or numbers, but many children do early on. Perhaps with dyslexia, children might continue to do it longer than typical. Actually, dyslexia is not a difficulty with vision at all. People with dyslexia see just as well as anybody else. Some people might think that intelligent people can't have dyslexia. Simply not true. Once again, dyslexia is a continuum. and it affects all kinds of people. Probably one of the most annoying things for older students, adolescents, and college students is that people think one outgrows dyslexia. Dyslexia can't be outgrown. We can learn to live with it and we can learn to read, but it's always going to be a challenge. And lastly, some people think that dyslexia is more prevalent in boys than girls, and there's simply no research that exists to suggest that that's true. In summary, dyslexia is basically difficulty in attaining, remembering, and using the alphabetic code automatically and fluently, despite good instruction. For more information on dyslexia, visit the Rhode Island Department of Education website or the International Dyslexia Association's website at dyslexiaida.org.